On today's episode of Popcorn for Breakfast, we're talking about Iron Lung, the directorial debut for Mark Fischbach, also known as Markiplier, the YouTube sensation. It's a horror movie based on a horror video game from back in 2022, and we've got all the details for you today in our review of Iron Lung. Let's get into it.
This is Popcorn for Breakfast, presented by St. Louis Area Smoothie Kings. Now, here are your hosts, Cam and Kurt.
Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Popcorn for Breakfast. We are so glad to have you. With me today is Stefano. Stefano, how you doing, man?
Hello. Doing very well. How are you, Cam?
Good. We are without Kirk today, but that's all right. We're gonna soldier on and do him proud. So today we're talking about Stefano, Iron Lung, a new movie, one that I know you and I have both been really excited about from Markiplier. So I never know like if in this capacity if I should refer to him as Mark Fischbach or Markiplier, but in the credits of the movie, the opening credits, he was listed as Markiplier, so I'm going to stick with that.
No, this is true. And more recognizable. Obviously, it's hard not to call him by his stage name.
Yeah. So, I mean, he is the latest to sort of join in on this. I mean, it seems cheap to call it a trend, but this sort of movement of YouTubers turned filmmakers. And I think, to people who have followed Markiplier for a while now, this was a turn that was expected at some point. Creators are going to create. And I think there has always been this allure of like filmmaking for him. And he's done like some YouTube original series and things like that. But yeah, I just wanted to, before we get into it, just kind of get your, like, what's your experience with Markiplier? Are you like diehard? Have you just watched a few things? Like, where are you at with it?
Yeah. I've only watched a few things of his. I, have watched, a handful of, YouTube video game streamers here and there and just a mishmash of stuff. But I've always known Markiplier to be kind of in that pantheon of YouTubers from the mid 2000s and 2010s and all that. And just hearing his name attached to something like this really caught me off guard. Not necessarily the type of film, but just the fact that he was making his own movie. It was kind of ridiculous, not in a bad way, but like, whoa, like did not expect that. Did not see that coming. You could always tell from, I guess, the instances that I did see him that he had those aspirations and he wasn't just going to stay complacent doing what he normally did. So shocked, but also not shocked that he took this next step.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, like I think I was a little bit late on the Markiplier train. Like I was aware of him because I think anybody who's been chronically online for like the last little while has been aware of Markiplier, but I didn't first start watching any of his content until like COVID. And then I was playing through the Last of Us games and started watching his playthrough of that, watched a couple other playthroughs, but had never seen this playthrough of the Iron Lung. So I was really glad that this was like a project that he chose. Obviously like near and dear to his heart. It was a story that inspired him and now here it is. He's making a movie. And you mentioned like the movie making process behind this is so interesting because he's doing something that I don't know is like totally precedented in this industry. I mean, you and I, like, we talk about movie production a lot, and it's like, here's a guy who made this thing happen, directed it, wrote it, starred in it, and distributed it. I mean, of all the things we talk about a lot of ambitious projects, but distributing your own movie should be basically impossible with the way the industry is set up. And somehow he found a way to get this thing on like thousands of screens starting this weekend. Right.
It's totally crazy because I think when you talk about how it's like now more than ever, it's easier than ever to make your own film. They say because like iPhones, all that good stuff. But for him to then this isn't film. This is filmed in an incredibly professional manner.
Yes.
But then the independent, like the very independent portion that he did was the distribution part, which is so backwards, which is so impressive. I was, initially this was going to be on like 50 to 60 screens. And I think as of today, it's now showing in over 4,000 locations worldwide.
Unbelievable.
Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That's, people couldn't dream of that. And it's like, it was so shocking to see like the trailers and then the little movie theater thing. And then it just went straight to it. Cause he's just himself.
It's just him, right?
Yeah. He just sent it over. He just sent it in an email.
Exactly. He's not getting like the full marketing like cavalcade that you would expect for a movie like this, but he doesn't need it. That's what's crazy about it, is like the word of mouth. Like he puts his name on something and boom, people are there. Because we were talking in the Discord earlier today, like one of the people in there is from New York, and they're like, every screening sold out. And I think that's the case on a lot of the coasts. Like we live in the Midwest, so I was able to get a ticket, but even still, like I went at 9 p.m. on a Thursday, which is like kind of a weird time to go to a movie in general, unless you're like sickos like us. And it was like almost full. Like it was like packed out. So it's really cool. It's really cool. And so I think, yeah, like we were kind of talking beforehand, if you're new to the show, welcome, glad to have you. But if you're not, like we usually go through this process of like take 1, take 2, take 3, where we break down the movie and talk about all these different things. I think for this movie and this occasion, we wanted to kind of just like, we want to dig into it, get into all that stuff, but also just make it a little bit more freeform. But we'll still hit you with a score at the end. We're going to keep it 100% spoiler free and let you know what we think about Iron Lung. So with that, Stefano, where you want to start, man?
I want to start with his performance and just the undertaking that he took on. Like, we're talking, it's a 2-hour film and he is basically on the screen for every second of it. And, you know, I think with a YouTuber turned filmmaker, you have people already standing there with their torches and pitchforks ready to just kind of pick your film apart.
Yeah.
And what is so like terrible, you think like, okay, he wants to make a film that people appreciate and have a good time seeing, but then you feel like in the back of someone's mind, you're like, I don't want to embarrass myself. And when you're being that vulnerable and acting in this entire film, it's a lot of pressure. And I think what he was able to do on the acting front was so impressive. You know, like obviously he's, you know, not a fully seasoned veteran actor, but I think for what he was able to do in this film, the physicality of it, and just the fact that it was just a one-man show was really impressive. You know, I don't think it's one of those where if he's probably going to prove his doubters wrong with the performance he was able to give. Obviously there's some, you know, weird line reads maybe, but I still think it was incredibly convincing. I think, you know, if somebody didn't know the context of this is Markiplier making a film, that they wouldn't, you know, just a normal moviegoer wouldn't really think anything of it. They just be like, okay, here's this movie with this actor who's doing a really solid job. And so I just want to give him his kudos for holding it down and being able to accomplish that.
I totally agree. Like from my perspective, that was something I was like bracing for, you know. I was like, cause I had seen the trailers too. And I felt like even like the trailer that I saw for the movie didn't fully it didn't make me feel overly confident about what acting performance I was walking into, but I was really pleasantly surprised. And I felt like, you know, to your point, like there are inconsistencies for sure. Acting is an art form and it's very difficult. And I think that I always compare it a little bit to like athleticism too. It's kind of like anything. Like for some people it comes really easily to them, and for some people it takes a lot more work. But I think it's definitely a craft. It takes time to hone. But for this being his first major feature, and like you said, being a chamber, like a literal chamber piece where he's by himself the whole time, interacting with no one, acting opposite no one, like this is, I mean, that's a huge achievement.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I felt like one of the things that jumped out to me about this movie, just thinking about, again, like how this production came together and how he literally, like, he played a game that was like, I mean, you've seen the game, so it's like N64 graphics, right?
Yep.
You know, like a little small indie game. It's a really short game. It's a really, really cool game with a really interesting world, which I think is why, you know, he got so into it. But to turn that into what this movie ended up looking like, what the inside of this vessel, the Iron Lung, looked like, I was very impressed with the production design of it. I really liked. I love the lighting sources that they used within the whole of the vessel, and the sound design and just the way that it sort of like came together. I thought was really lovely. And it's funny because it's like so familiar to that game, but it's also its own world too, to where it's like he cinemified it, and it looked it turned out very well, I thought.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like I know you and I just recently watched his couple videos of him playing through the game. And
Yeah.
I was getting kind of giddy, like for the movie to start. I was like, how is he going to show this? Like, what is this going to look like on screen? Because they didn't really show much in the trailer. Like you said, the trailer was you know, a little different, but
Yeah.
just the way he was able to turn it into a real thing. And just to see that he was so true to the setup, because, it's a very specific setup in the game. You have your little, depth meter, and then your coordinates meter, and just the way that he was able to bring that to life, and the camera button, and just the way
Yeah.
that all looked, it just was so, true to the game. But obviously putting it in a film environment was so fun.
Yeah, it was really cool. Yeah, I like that you mentioned the camera too. The camera in the movie is often used as like a light source too,
Yep.
which was a really cool effect. I talked a lot about this with like Alien Romulus, and in some ways, I feel like this felt like an alien movie in so many ways where um, I love the use of lighting sources from, unconventional things where it's
Hmm.
like, if you're in space, it's going to be dark. If you're under under a blood ocean, like it's going to be dark. And
Yep.
so if lights go out, like you have to get creative with that. And I felt like they were very creative with it. He
Totally.
and his team. So that was really neat.
And I think, kind of going off of that, the game was so simple that I
Yeah.
was really interested to see how he was going to expand this
Hmm.
into a larger story. And it goes in some interesting directions. I think most people will say the film's too long.
Yeah,
You know,
for sure.
it's there's definitely some areas where we can trim some of it down. It does get a little worn out, but I do think that the avenues he takes to kind of make it more of just, the game is just go to this, take a photo, go to this, take a photo, and then something happens. So him turning that into just the, and then him also, I think, creating aspects that you see in the game in the movie, like the little map,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like there's a map with writing on it, and then you kind of see him writing on a map, and all that kind of stuff, and how it exists, I think was super creative. And I think, the video game's creator was kind of helped with the screenplay. He was on set. So I think that was such an important part of that process for expanding the story in a respectable way, but in a way that the video game creator would have, considered or done himself as well. So
Yeah, it's so key. And I think that is why somebody like Markiplier is so well suited for this job, because how often do we see a major studio take on a video game adaptation and muck with the lore or muck with
yeah.
how it works, because they're just like, well, they'll show up and they'll buy tickets and we just have to adjust here and there. Like, no, this was like a labor of love from people who love the game, and from the creator of the game working side by side with Markiplier. How they were able to come up with that was really creative. And I think that they're too, like you mentioned, the game is so unique and so just kind of small in scale,
Hmm.
like how it works. The mechanics are pretty straightforward. Everything's very like simple. Um, there are elements of that game that make it a really good video game that also make it a very hard movie to make.
Yep.
And so I think that they had that sort of headwind working against them across this project, and Markiplier certainly had to come up with all kinds of creative solutions. He did come up with a lot of them. And I was also pretty interested in how it came together. For me though, like I mean, if I'm like putting on my critic hat, like I have to say, like there are times where I like yearned for it to be a little simpler, right? Like
Yep. Totally.
there are parts where I'm like, I don't know that we needed to go there. And honestly, like the end for me
Yep.
is like pretty incoherent and like a little bit overstimulating and just kind of over the top, where I was
Yep.
like, I almost feel like we didn't have to go there. Like I felt like there were instances where we should have reined it in, and
Yep.
it would have benefited it.
Yep, I totally agree. And I think that's kind of what I was getting at with the length. I think it was almost like that final act, which I agree was, after this, since we can't talk spoilers, I'm going to text you and ask you what in the world happened.
Yeah.
Um, if we cut it back 25 minutes, then he doesn't feel like he needs to go to an extra layer of oddity, I guess,
Yes.
to make it a full 2 hour film. I think the simplicity and, part of the beauty of the game too was just kind of how that game ended.
Yeah.
And there is an ode to it, but I think that, you know, the area it goes into muddied it up a lot, and kind of left me with like the first, I really loved the first 35 to 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Then it started to get a little weird. Nothing's wrong with weird, but some of the places it went were a little incoherent, as you said. So yeah, it's tough. It's tough to finish a movie like that, especially your first one, but you kind of want to throw all your resources and everything at it. I think Markiplier was saying this is the most fake blood ever used on a production.
Yeah,
I think that's
it
his
was
claim to
in
fame on it.
it was in the IMDb trivia. It was like 80,000 gallons of fake blood, which cleared, I think it was Evil Dead Rise or something like that, but at 50,000 gallons. So he had some good headroom there on that record.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And it was hard to see it. It was dark. It was a dark finale, so it was hard to see all the blood, but it was in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think the other thing that was difficult about this movie in general, and this is, be lenient on me, anybody who's watching or listening, because I did like just finish the movie and it is late. So I'm trying to like pull this thought together. But there was something that came to me on my drive home where I was like, there's something tonally about when you're dropped into a video game that's in this world, there's a little bit more levity to it because you're not the person, you're trying to, it's dark circumstances and there's lots of dark things happening, but like, you're not that person. You have a sense of separation. And so you can keep it a little bit lighter. This movie, because he is the person, has to take a tone that's so dark and so heavy the whole time. And that, like, we see that across a ton of movies. Maintaining a heavy tone like that is just difficult. It just is. And it kind of like wears on people. And I think it makes it really hard. It's hard to make a 2-hour, 7-minute movie where your tone is heavy, heavy, heavy the whole way. And so I felt like that was another big challenge of kind of like bringing this to life that was felt with it.
Yeah, I can totally see that. And I think part of why I did love the first 30 minutes more than any other part of the film was I feel like it was trying to get there, like him just kind of figuring out the lay of the land a bit. Like that's the levity I wanted. And it was still very dark because of the circumstances, but it was at least trying to get there. But I feel like it did desperately need that for portions of this, but it's, we kind of changed the core of how we wrote the film, and it's a tough dance for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, any last thoughts on this one before we wrap it up and give a score? I want to hear any other things that you're dying to talk about with this one.
I don't know. I hate to bring this up, but I will, because it was a hot topic a few months ago as well. With, like I said, people are wanting this film to fail.
Yeah.
People are wanting it to succeed. And I feel like that kind of happened a few months ago with Chris Stuckman's Shelby Oaks.
Absolutely.
And it's hard to not kind of compare the two. They're very different films. They're both, in the horror subgenre at least. But I think it just kind of goes to show, like, there was so much that went into this one that I feel like didn't go into what I saw in Shelby Oaks. And the releases were also so different. Chris Stuckman was able to get a very prestigious studio to distribute it.
Yeah.
There was a lot of marketing behind it. And it was a very independent film as well. And it was also a labor of love for Chris Stuckman. But I feel like there was so much, behind that to me, that movie basically didn't work in any way, shape, or form. And I was pretty harsh on the film, and not because of the filmmaker, but just because I didn't think it worked at all as a film. And with this one, obviously there's some issues I had with it, but I think for this kind of first shot, this fully, self-funded and community of funders and self-made and independent film, I think does a lot of things better than that one did.
Yeah.
Without the studios behind it and all that. So just kind of, wanted to bring that up because it's, it's hard to remove the creator from it. It's a huge part of the release in the film itself. So
yeah.
That's kind of final thoughts on that, but I think I'm going to make you give your score first.
Okay. Fair enough. I'm going to I've been grappling with it the whole 10-minute drive home, and then ever since we started this recording. So I agree with you. I think the other thing about Chris Stuckman is like he was coming from his channel was movie criticism. You know what I mean? Like, so Like, talk about painting a target on your back. He probably wasn't necessarily, he wasn't necessarily trying to do that, but you know, there are going to be people who disagree with you. And then if you go out and make a movie, like they're going to want to find things wrong with it. Now, obviously, like, not everybody goes into it with ill intentions, but that's just kind of how that happens, to your point. Yeah. I mean, I think for me, if I'm like wrapping this whole thing up, I think very solid, first movie for Markiplier. There's a lot that I really enjoy about it, and there's a lot that I think he really should be commended for. Like I said, with the production design, his performance in general, some of the writing, some of the like the just the willingness to take swings in terms of like how it's shot, how it looks, the aesthetic of it. There's some really good stuff there. I do think it's pretty ambitious, and I think that it struggles for sure down the stretch. It's pretty long, like we said, and I think that it's just hard when it's a suspense film, a horror film, to make that hold, particularly one like this where it's a guy in a sub the whole time, right? Like that is a tough thing to make work for 2 hours. But overall, like, I'm pretty pleased with the result. Definitely looking forward to more Markiplier movies. Like, I think he should continue, like, get back on that horse. I think he probably learned a ton from this process and will continue to do exciting things. So I will be there buying a ticket anytime he does for the foreseeable future. For this one though, I do think it's too disjointed for me to go too high. So I'm going to keep it pretty middle. I'm going to go 5.7 out of 10 on this one.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm going to recommend it for, the reasons we talked about, because of the ambition, because of him self-distributing this. This is honestly like one of the most impressive film feats we may have ever seen.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, I'm trying to not be too hyperbolic.
No,
but
seriously,
it really is.
Yeah.
It's such an accomplishment. I enjoyed my time watching it. I had some issues with it, like you said, but really impressed with it. It's like, I don't know what I want to see him act more too. I want to see him. Yeah. So maybe he'll just put himself in his own films. So I'm fine with that. And yeah, I'm at about the same, a little bit higher. I'm at a 6.1 on this, but yeah, it's worth everybody's time, especially if you're even remotely interested.
Yes. Definitely agree. Definitely co-sign on all of that. So yeah, that's Iron Lung. If you have gotten a chance to go out and see the movie, let us know your thoughts down below in the comments, or if you're just a fan of Markiplier and have questions, please hit us up. We willing to talk more about this movie for sure, and willing to get into spoilers too. If you want to send us a DM on one of our social media platforms, or talk with us in the Discord channel. Steph and I are going to be texting about this later, because there's a lot to dig into. But for sure, like, major kudos to Markiplier. And his team. This is a great achievement, and it sounds like both of us are very much looking forward to see more from him. So I think that's a win across the board.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. Stefano, thank you for being here, man. I really appreciate it. Always good to chat with you.
Of course. No, I love being on here. You kidding me?
Yeah. It's a good time. And if you guys like the episode, please be sure to, if you're watching on YouTube, give us a like and a comment. It helps us out a whole ton. If you want to see other reviews or any of our other content, we do more than just reviews. Please be sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future episodes. You can also subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can follow us on Instagram, X, Facebook. We have a Discord server, like I mentioned, that's free. It's down below in the description, and you can find all of our content at popcorn4breakfast.com. We've got blogs, videos, podcasts, all kinds of stuff on there that's being updated all the time. But we thank you so much for watching this episode. We give special thanks as well to our executive producer Ryan, our title sponsor St. Louis Area Smoothie Kings, and the band Rhetoric, who created our original music. And we will see you all next time.